to place budget justification notes within each of an individual line items. While it's not required, what the functionality does is allow you to work on the budget justification as you go along, and there's a place at the end of the budget to consolidate all of it. So if I've added a bit of text description for each of these line items in the budget, both personnel and non-personnel, I might be cutting and pasting from a Word document or adding information on each line item. But when I get to the end of the budget, I can consolidate all of these notes into one file so that I can clean that up and add it as an attachment for my proposal submission. And just as an example, this, the other direct costs, same thing. Allows you to select the object code name and add a budget line item, and has the same information for line item details. So that's common throughout the budget. The distribution in income is where you can capture cost sharing, unrecovered indirect costs, and also program income if the proposal has any. We added cost sharing to this budget for some of the salary lines. And what it does is it brings in the total amount of cost sharing. So this amount here is going to be represented by both salary for the cost shared people and their fringe benefit rates. And what it allows me to do is distribute out the entire amount to an account or a department, and it will create an error if I don't have a distributed amount of cost sharing completely distributed when I try to route the proposal. What that basically means is that it wants you to allocate cost sharing to a source for 100% of the dollars listed for cost sharing. And you have options. You can do it all by 1 year, set up multiple time periods to show when the cost sharing is expected to be, to be committed by whom and in what time period. So right now I have this total amount. My total cost sharing is $62,000, and what it'll do is force me to make sure it's allocated to something. In this case, it can be an account number or a department name. So I'll go ahead and put that in there. If I had a balance here, it would show an error that I needed to distribute the rest of my cost sharing. So it's just a handy way of making sure that the cost sharing commitments are lined up prior to the proposal being routed. If I were using a lower rate of indirect costs on my proposal, it would calculate the amount of indirect cost here. This tab, both the cost sharing and unrecovered F&A tab are configurable by the school, which means they don't have to be required. Your users don't even have to see them if you don't treat cost sharing and unrecovered indirect costs the same way. But some schools actually require that unrecovered F&A be distributed back to the department so that someone's actually paying for the shortfall. So that's just a way of capturing that information. It's similar to the way that cost sharing works. And the tab actually looks a lot the same to the cost sharing tab. Project income is a way of showing expected income against the expected grant if there is any. So let's say we were going to sell some videos that were generated as a result of having this NSF award, and we were going to make $1,500. So this would just be a way of capturing that up front. In the case of an NIH proposal, for instance, this would populate the appropriate information on the NIH forms in a grants.gov submission. The modular budget. There are a couple of ways of doing the modular budget. You can create the modular budget from scratch, meaning we didn't have to go through any of these exercises adding personnel and non-personnel budget line items, or you can generate the detailed budget and sync it to modular, so make it modular from the dollar amounts that you got out of creating your detailed budget. So I could go ahead and get into a budget period. So I'll pick budget period 1. And it's going to let me do a couple of things. Right now, because I don't have this set up as a modular budget, it'll let me enter a few items. But what I would need to do is sync it to modular so that I can make some edits. And what that's going to do is take the budget I've added thus far and make it modular. It doesn't eliminate the detailed budget. It just gives me another view, in this case the modular view. So it confirms that I really want to do this, and I say yes. And it basically it takes it creates a modular amount based on my direct cost, and it rounds up. So if my direct costs were $210,000, it would automatically round up to $225,000. But I can, as you can see, change this if I need to. It also allows me to, it brings in the F&A from the detailed budget, including the detailed budget exclusions. So if you wanted to do the exclusions based on the modular amount versus the actual detailed budgeted total direct cost amount, you could make those changes as well, and you can do the calculations. Last but not least, on the budget actions, you can, like you saw in the proposal, generate some generic forms that give you a nice clean hard copy if you need one. This budget justification area where I was talking about how you can collect all the information that you have, you can consolidate all of that into this justification text area so that you can cut it, paste it into a Word document and make it look really nice before you attach it as a budget justification file. The subaward budget is for grants.gov proposals only. There are other places to put in subaward budget line items in the non-personnel area, but this area is specifically for the extracted PDF subaward budget that you'd get with Adobe Forms. So if you've got subawardees, this is how you'd incorporate their budget into your grants.gov system-to-system submission. I want to go back to the parameters page really quickly. I talked about generating the budget based on what I'd already added. So I have my year one already added, and let's say I'm pretty satisfied with how it looks. I don't need to add any other items to it. What I can do, and the reason I want to make sure I'm satisfied with it, is that I can't undo this, and I can't do it again. So while I can make edits to later years, I can't do this generate all periods again. And what this essentially does is creates budget periods 2 and 3, or 3, 4, and 5, or however many years I have, and it generates them based on the year one information and adding inflation if that applies. So in this case, I don't have inflation turned on. It added all of my years. I can go into any one of these budget periods and make edits. So if I had a piece of equipment in year one, but I know I'm not going to have it in year 2 and 3, I can go in and take those out. But this is a quick and easy way to generate all the periods and then make your refinements as you go along. So I'm going to go ahead and go back to the proposal. We're not ready to do a submission yet, but let's pretend we are. If we pretend that we are ready to submit and we submit it into routing, what will then happen is all of the people who are in routing will see the proposal show up in their action list. So they'll have a list like this with all the items, and in an action requested, it'll say things like approve, so that they know they need to approve the proposal. And once the proposal is completely approved by everyone that's in your workflow chain, it generates something called an institutional proposal. And what that looks like is like this. It basically takes the information, some of the information you had in the proposal development record, and puts it in what's called an institutional proposal, because this is the record that is basically the static reportable record for your school for institution, for proposals submitted to any sponsor. It creates this record as a middle piece between proposal development and award. And basically there are a couple of reasons why institutional proposal is really important. One is that it provides that static record, so it's not something that's being constantly changed. You can see why in proposal development, with a number of proposals being in progress.
Welcome to GoToWebinar, Web Events Made Easy.
Records in there that you don't even know about because they haven't been worked on in so long. So the institutional proposal allows you to have sort of this baseline area of things you know have been submitted, and you can also tell whether it's been funded or not, because this is where the pending proposal resides. It's also where it's shown to be linked with awards. I won't go through the entire institutional proposal. It has a lot of the same things that you saw in the proposal development, because it's pulling the information from proposal development. The one thing that it has different from proposal development is a place for IP review. So if you needed to send a submitted proposal to your tech transfer, your technology licensing office for review and a decision, this is where you'd do that. And this allows you to route it to the appropriate people so that they can do what they need to do to make a recommendation or take action on a proposal when there's something like back